A report published this week shows that some of the stigma around psilocybin may be going away. About 1 in every 40 high school seniors have tried the psychoactive drug last year. Similar number of people in their 20s have tried the drug during that same time period.
Our medical expert, Dr. Pyle Coley, joins us now for some insight on psilocybin. First off, let's start with the basics. What is this, and can you tell us a little bit about its history?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's the main sort of psychoactive component of magic mushrooms or psychedelic mushrooms. And it's been around for a long time. The Aztecs actually use it in a lot of their religious rituals. It's called the flesh of the god because it sort of gives you an out-of-body experience, resets your mind. And what it works on is serotonin, which, as you know, is a chemical in our brain that's involved in mood and cognition, in function, in thinking, in judgment, lots of different things. So basically what it does is sort of resets your brain. So think about almost like a hard reset on your computer, right? When it's acting up, you hold down that start button until it turns off. That's what this does to your brain. Yeah.
Sounds good, depending on what you're looking for, right, when taking it. But I'm curious, Colorado is just the second state in the nation to make it illegal here for us to partake. Is that why, people have been using it more often because it's legal, or people are just like into it now?
So I would say that's a big driver of it. And think about it sort of almost like marijuana, the new marijuana. Because what used to happen in the 1970s, they had made it a controlled substance because they said there's an addictive potential, right? Because it does cause a lot of these sort of pleasurable feelings and euphoria, so people can get addicted. So because it was controlled, that meant a pause on medical research. Around 2000, hospitals started looking at it for medical uses, and I think that took away the stigma associated with it. On top of that, we decriminalized it recently, Denver being one of the first cities to do that, so I think people are a lot more ready to try it. Now, I want to be careful about medical uses versus recreational uses, because the studies have all been in medical uses, but what we're seeing, especially like in our kids, our high school seniors, is recreational use, which makes me very nervous.
What are some of those medical uses you were talking about?
So Johns Hopkins and others have looked at a number of different psychiatric conditions. So you're talking about treatment-resistant depression. Nothing else is working. You give them one dose of this in a monitored setting, very different from taking it recreationally, and you can see effects within 24 hours.
Wow.
Anxiety, especially end-of-life anxiety, so for a lot of terminal patients, this really does help them sort of come to a religious, philosophical sort of acceptance of the end of their life. We're seeing huge effects on PTSD and trauma, again, because you're erasing some of those old connections and making these new ones. Even alcohol use disorder, tobacco use disorder, it's helping you to get rid of that network in your brain.
Well, it's been interesting because I've been kind of going down the rabbit hole in some of this stuff, and there's like all these groups of mommies who microdose, and it's like popular in certain sectors, which I think makes sense. It's exhausting having kiddos, but like, what about kids? Because that's another sector that it's growing, and that seems scary.
Yes, 2.5% to 3.5% of 12th graders have tried this. And if you think about it, there is no research in adolescence. There's no approved uses in adolescence. And in fact, we've talked about this before, but the adolescent brain is a blank slate. It's developing its connections. So if you hit reset on a vulnerable period on your computer, it might not turn on properly. And that's the worry here, is that you're starting to have these psychedelic substances at a time when the brain is learning how to create judgment, how to form. Your brain is immature, so you'll actually create long-term problems, possibly mental health problems, psychosis, paranoia, poor judgment, irrational behavior, these types of issues in our kids.
The opposite of what you're trying to accomplish, right? So in terms of maybe things parents can look out for, and also maybe folks who are first getting into this, what are some signs for psilocybin toxicity or maybe even poisoning?
So, generally the toxicity is well tolerated, just like a bad trip, basically. So mostly you want to try to reassure the person because they're having hallucinations, paranoias, fears, and it lasts for several hours. And so they certainly don't feel well during that time. But if it starts to get too much, sometimes they can have physical symptoms. Their heart is racing, their skin is dilated, so they feel really hot, their pupils are dilated. And in the severe cases, you can obviously get seizure, coma, hyperthermia, even cardiac arrest. So it's a spectrum of risk, but really talk to your kids if you think they might be using and counsel them. My worry is, where are these kids even getting it from? Because it's not readily available, and so the fact that so many people are using it, especially kids, and even the mommies that are microdosing, we don't know what the long-term effects on resetting your brain on a regular basis really are.
Still so much research that needs to go into this.
That's right.
Yeah, a lot to learn.
Dr. Coley, thank you.